Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Nerd Herders. My name is Rich,
I'm Nick.
and we are, of course, from the Over Beer channel, and this is our discussion day. So it's usually we pick something, sometimes it's relevant to the news, sometimes it's not. Today's a little more relevant, I think. We're going to be talking about, I guess, hype and the dangers of hype. Like we talked about at the top of the week, Mighty Number 9 came out, highly anticipated when it was announced and became less so over time and has gotten very mediocre reviews. We've got another game coming out soon that has been hyped for 10 years. We got two games coming out soon that have been talked about for 10 years. And that's Final Fantasy 15 and Last Guardian.
Yep.
So I guess we're going to talk about kind of more like the dangers of hype and can these things live up to our expectations, and should our thoughts on them be impacted by the fact that, you know, we've been waiting so long for some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so again, really kind of what made us think about this is Mighty Number 9, right?
Yeah.
And still, neither of us have seen or have played this game as of yet, right? You haven't?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so, I mean, we're commenting on the word that we're hearing.
Sure.
There's a chance we play and we're like, I don't understand. It's awesome.
Yeah, but pretty much universally it's gotten...
Right. And I think I was watching IGN's Up at Noon the other day. I don't know if you saw the segment they did on it. And Brian Altano said that it is the most disappointing game of all time.
Yeah, I did see that.
And it's interesting, where does that hype come from? Because in some cases, the thing with hype is it's generated by the creators.
Sure.
And then it's their fault. But sometimes I feel like as nerds, as geeks, we build stuff up unfairly to an unfair level that can never be reached. Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, what's your take on, like should we have been that excited for something like Mighty Number 9 to the point? Like, whose fault is it?
Well, I think Mighty Number 9 falls a little bit different of a category. And I don't remember which part they were talking about, but Colin from Kind of Funny said something that, you know, we were it wasn't that we didn't build this up to go, oh, Inafune's doing this, I bet it's going to be like Mega Man. This Kickstarter that it came out was made with the promise of this is the spiritual successor to Mega Man.
Right. So
I think with this one it falls a little more on the side of the creator.
Yeah.
But then, you know, we kind of guessed as it got delayed more and more, and different things were reasons for the delays and whatever, that this is probably not going to shaping up to be what we were initially promised.
Yeah, I mean, I stopped being excited for this game a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, like, the writing was on the wall that it was not going to be good to me, personally. Just like another, you know, if you had told me 19 years ago, if you told me 19 years and 11 months ago that there was going to be a sequel to Independence Day, my hype would have been out the wazoo.
Yeah.
But months ago, I saw the writing on the wall.
Have you seen that yet?
No, I have not seen it. Again, it's based on buzz. It's based on friends that have seen it who were excited for it still. But, I mean, very early on, after the first trailer, or after the second trailer, I was like, you know what? It still doesn't look fun. And this guy hasn't directed an actually good movie in 20 years.
Probably since the last
since Independence Day. I mean, the only movie since then that I think has even been worthwhile was White House Down, the Channing Tatum movie.
I didn't see it.
And I've never felt compelled to watch it again. I've watched Independence Day 50 times.
Sure.
So the writing was on the... That's another one that you could say the hype was there.
Because that had been sort of in and out of development for quite a while, hadn't it?
Yeah,
okay.
Lots of times. But I mean, we get this all the time. We get it with movies, we get it with video games, we get it with books. I'm sure that the level of hype around the idea of a continuation of the Harry Potter storyline, coming with the Cursed Child coming out in 6 weeks now?
Yeah. I mean, we saw that though with her first book that came out. What was the
right? Yeah, The Casual Vacancy. It was like, oh my god, another J.K. Rowling
she's
book.
doing another book, and it's this and that, and everyone kind of went, well, it's not Harry Potter.
Yep. But this is Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But then in your head, depending on what that means to you, it's can this possibly reach it? It was the same thing with Harper Lee's book, Ghost at a Watchman.
Did you end up reading that?
Never bothered.
Okay.
I have it.
I never heard whether that was supposed to be any good.
It's not supposed to be very good.
Okay.
It's supposed to be mediocre to not very good. Definitely not worthy. But then you hear the circumstances of how it was released, and it all seems kind of suspicious anyway. But like we get this all the time, and I feel like this only happens with things in nerd culture in a way. I mean, like, what else does this level of hype reach?
Look at No Man's Sky.
Right. No Man's Sky is the next example.
That comes out in August. So that's really the next, I think, big hype example in the nerd realm that we've kind of seen.
Comes out in August.
Yeah, we'll see. It's supposed to come out this month. It's supposed to be out right now.
Today, as we're recording it.
Yeah.
I think it was.
I think it's supposed to be last week, actually.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
But because everybody's so hyped for this game, and this is going to be, but nobody's played it. Like, everyone's already talking about this being the end-all be-all game based on the devs saying, "Oh yeah, this is our ideas for it," and I think fairly or unfairly, people have sort of taken those ideas that Hello Games has sort of talked about, like, "Oh yeah, this is our idea for it," and sort of run with it on their own and gone, "Oh my god, this is going to be my own personal space epic and adventure and this and this and this."
Yeah.
But we still haven't really seen too much of it.
I feel like the whole culture around the idea of this hype has sort of evolved to the point where it used to be something would just come out and people would get really happy about it. You think back to probably how it was when Star Wars came out or Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then it became with the internet and with probably even before that with some of the magazines that would, whether it was Nintendo Power or a movie magazine, and then the internet, the build up to things really started. And then people would get excited about it and then it would come out, and then sometimes it wouldn't match that excitement. But I feel like now we've reached this point where people get overly excited about something and then unexcited about it before it ever hits. Because that's what happened with Mighty Number 9 with us. That's what's happening with a lot of people with No Man's Sky, where it reached this point where it was this fever pitch of the promises that they were giving us, but also people building it up in their mind. And now, because it's been delayed a couple times, people already anticipate that it is not good enough because we overbuilt it. When before, if it had come out, if it hadn't had all the buildup, if it hadn't been at 3 E3s or whatever, and I think that we would have been just blown away at the basics of what this game is, but now everybody wants it to be more.
Everyone's had all this time to sit and this is
it's gonna be this, and I'm gonna go to this planet, I'm gonna conquer it, and I'm gonna rule these people. And it's probably not gonna be like that, and so it's gonna be disappointing when it's still a massive achievement.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem too is how early some of this stuff is put, be it games or movie. Beat Batman v Superman, we were seeing trailers for that and photos and this and that, last year this time. I mean, a year before it came out, easy.
Oh, more than that. That first teaser, which they shot, I think, before they had ever started filming, where it was him on the roof, that was at Comic-Con, and then it leaked, was 2 years ago.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. But how often, here, an interesting thing is, now how often does something that you have that level of hype for actually meet it now?
I've had two things come to mind recently that I'm like, oh, I'm excited for this, and it lived up to it.
I think that one of them, I bet we have the same.
Probably, and it's Force Awakens.
Force Awakens, yeah.
And the second one is Mad Max: Fury Road.
See, that exceeded. I guess what I would say is with that, my hype never hit those levels.
Sure.
I was excited for it. It was kind of like, how could that possibly still be good? And, does he still have it? And then it just blew away.
That was one of those things that it always. I tried to avoid too much of the trailers, but it always looked so bonkers and out there and insane. And I was definitely excited for it, but it exceeded those expectations of hype. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I almost never get anymore.
Right. No, I mean that's definitely one that any sort of excitement that you thought you might have gotten from that movie, it did push it.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones is another one that does consistently for me exceed my expectations.
Okay.
Like the season finale, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the season finale was the other night, and I think it was the greatest episode they've ever done.
Wow.
And then the week before that, I thought was the most impressive thing I've ever seen visually done on television. So to end the season on those two notes, I mean, on a show that I already love, they're consistently exceeding my expectations. But it is rare, right? Most of the times when we let hype get that way, there's no way for you to be as excited for it as you should be. And I think that maybe we expect more now from some things, but I think that we expect more because we've gotten greatness. I remember the Breaking Bad effect that I had with television. When the second part of the final season was airing, everything else that was on at the same time just didn't seem like good television to me anymore. Because it was at another level. And sometimes, we've seen the superhero film reach a point where we can have the Dark Knights, the Civil Wars, when something like X-Men Apocalypse a decade ago probably would have been a mind-blowing movie for people to experience, and now it's just a disappointment because it's not at the level. And I think that's the other thing. Like something like Mighty Number 9, yes, there was all that promise, but the fact is video games have come an incredibly long way from even when Mega Man is but we've also gotten great recent examples of that style of game with something like Shovel Knight. Yeah. Where it's just like, this is just not acceptable in 2016. But maybe if that had come out as a Mega Man game even 15 years ago, maybe we would have been maybe it would have been a little bit more different, There wouldn't have been the expectation. But maybe that game just sucks. I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to say because we expect more. Yeah. If you're going to make a game like that in 2016, it's got to be on another level.
Well, I don't think it necessarily has to be on another level, but when you make the promise of, this is my spiritual successor, I can't do Mega Man games anymore. This is the game that I am making instead to fill that void for the lack of Mega Man games. And here's the art style, and here's this, and here's that. And then this changed, and then this changed, and then this thing, and then it got delayed. And then it got delayed for online support and leaderboards and this and that. And I kind of went, wait a second.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing that I would say I'm surprised... I don't know if I'm surprised. I guess I'm sort of surprised that the hype isn't where you would think it would be, is the BFG. Comes out this Friday, right? Steven Spielberg reuniting for the first time since 1982 with the screenwriter of E.T. Yeah. One of the most beloved films of all time. Adapting Roald Dahl, one of the most beloved authors of all time. And working for the first time for Disney, a company that it seems like he would have already had worked with. Yeah. And yet, I don't feel like anyone's really excited for it.
I don't think they've been pushing that, really,
and
either.
It's very surprising, because you look at what Disney has done in the past few years, the way that they're able to market everything almost seemingly perfect. Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, their own animation studios has taken off. And it doesn't really feel like they're behind this movie. And I don't know if that's because maybe it's not that good.
Like, the trailers I've seen don't really mention it. The only time I realized that it was involving this, people from ET was like that pre-show first look thing that they do. It's like, oh yeah, this is, we had such a good time working together on ET and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. I didn't even know that. Like, you'd think they'd be pushing that, the creators of ET are back together to bring you,
Yeah, the marketing campaign on it is very puzzling, because I feel like they could have had they could have willed it into being a massive hit. And you shouldn't even have to do that with Spielberg and stuff. But it is really surprising that even my hype for something like that is just not, like, that's fine that that's coming out this weekend. I'm not, like, excited about it.
I'm interested in it,
but I'm absolutely every reason to be super excited about it. And it's just not there. But I think that's because, like I said, we've almost become cynical of the hype. It's got to be something really special, it seems. Like, I remember even being... it wasn't until a couple of days before Civil War that I started getting super excited about it. And maybe that's just too much of a good thing. Like, why is that?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned we've had so much of it, and you think back to like when Jurassic Park came out, and like how mind blowing that was, and how we didn't that I recall. I don't think there was that much expectation or hype around that in the way that it ended up being. And then you see it's like, oh yeah, Spielberg is doing mocap, and okay, well, yeah, the giants look fine. Okay. Meh.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. And there's so much. I mean, I'm already pretty excited for Jason Bourne, but like overall, I just feel like I don't know. We're too skeptical of things. We see too many amazing things, whether it's movies, television, games. I mean, do you think that there is a chance that No Man's Sky or The Last Guardian have a chance to actually live up to the hype?
No,
I don't think
I don't
does.
at all.
I think that they could. I think that our own expectations could be met.
I think that they can definitely be,
But as a whole, the collective discussion.
good or very good games. But I don't see the hype, the passion that people have for No Man's Sky, that they have no real like are like jumping to defend this game and like send death threats over people reporting on delays.
There's no chance of that game.
Like that's not going to live up to it in The Last Guardian that people have been waiting for a decade.
The Last Guardian, I'm sorry, it doesn't. People played it at E3. There was no conversation out there.
I mean, I've heard
the hype.
some good things.
It was fine, but nobody came out of that saying, this is everything that you ever dreamed that it would be.
Yeah,
and this,
exactly.
Like, that game is destined to get crushed.
Which is unfair. I mean, because that,
Even if it's fine.
you know, I brought up, My Neighbor 9, it's like, well, this was promised to be this way. This game was never promised to, like, be the end-all, be-all greatest game ever. It was just coming off of Shadow of the Colossus that everybody loved.
Yeah,
and just because
probably.
It's been so long.
I don't know how they presented it at whatever first E3 it was talked about or whatever. I mean, I'm assuming... I don't know. I really don't know what that first
I
presentation...
mean, I've seen, like, the trailer
stories.
from 10 years ago, and I was like, okay, like, that looks cool, but it was never, like, No Man's Sky. It's like, you're going to get to go everywhere and do this. It was like, okay, here's another very Team Eco-looking game, and now we've just waited. Same thing with, like, Duke Nukem Forever, when everyone was like, oh, we've been, it's kind of so infamous that everybody's curious, but the hardcore people are still, like, super excited. Like, Christian, who was on the show a couple times, like, he's still, like, ready to go. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, that's good but I feel like people like that, I think might actually be further hurting their overall reception to the game, because I feel like if you aren't seeing some of these warning signs as a reason to somewhat temper expectations, don't stop being exciting, but temper your expectations, then you are cruising for a reason.
That's the problem. I'm not saying don't be excited or don't or be really super cynical about it, but just keep your expectations in check.
In some ways, the Rogue One reshoots might be a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
Because it got us wondering.
Mm-hmm.
Not worrying. I don't think either of us were worried when we discussed that. But it got me wondering, is there something wrong with that movie?
Yeah.
Where coming off of Force Awakens and then the teaser, I was like, Rogue One's going to be the greatest movie of all time. Yeah. And now I'm just like, let's see. Let's wait and see. Mm-hmm. Am I excited for it? Of course I'm excited.
Yeah, I remember us like texting back and forth when that trailer came out, and we were like freaking out.
Unbelievable.
And then these reshoots were like, well, okay. Like it just kind of kept those expectations in check, where I was like, all right, okay, well, this is happening. I don't want to be worried about it, but maybe this isn't going to be what they say, and who knows? Let's just keep an open mind and see what happens.
Yeah. So, interesting. I guess people should let us know. Tell us a time when the hype did not match your expectations.
Yeah.
And also one that did. Tweet at us.
Yeah, let us know. At Rich Belson.
Before we keep going, though,
okay.
I didn't ask you that. What was the most recent time when it didn't? I mean, is it just
when it let me down?
Yeah. See, for me, I can't really say that game because I haven't played it.
No.
And also, I was never all that excited.
I was
I've played
interested
some
in
Mega
it, but
Man,
I was
it wasn't
never like.
That's not my series or anything.
This wasn't a super hype one. It's definitely one I was excited for. I remember Sonic 06 before that came out, and it was like, this is going to be a reboot. We're going to, kind of bring it back to the roots of the franchise, and blah. And that game is just a total mess. But can't think of something offhand right now that I was like hyped the way people are hyped for like No Man's Sky or something, when I was let down and went, oh, well, this is crap.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the only immediate thing that I can think of, and again, it's not quite fair because I still haven't played it, but Star Fox.
Okay.
Just like the fact that I never, after it came out and the word that I was hearing, I didn't feel compelled to feel the need to get it when I should have absolutely been dying to play that game.
I've got one. The Evil Dead remake. That was one that the original Evil Dead is like one of my, if not the favorite horror film of all time, and they were saying all of the right things before it. They're going to do practical effects. They handpicked this, Raimi and Campbell involved, blah 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 blah, and then it was just kind of a mess. And then I went and saw it a second time with like kind of lower expectations. I'm like, okay, well, I don't dislike it as much, but it's still got problems.
Yeah.
So that would be something for me that...
Yeah, I actually, on a similar note, probably my favorite horror movie of all time, it wasn't a remake, but it basically is, my favorite horror movie is John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah.
And then that movie, The Thing, came out. And again, they were saying all the right things leading up to it. And I was, Mary Elizabeth Winstead coming off Scott Pilgrim. And they were like, oh, it's mainly all practical and this and that. And then you see it and it's like, this is all fucking CGI. What were you talking? And it's a terrible story and it's not cool and it's not anything. And it's basically just the first movie again in many ways too. Or the first remake, I should say. But yeah, that one was definitely like, I can't believe you tricked me into even wanting to go to this.
Yeah.
But yeah, hype. It's a thing.
Yeah, so yeah, again, let us know on Twitter. Again, I'm at Rich Belson.
I'm at Stonks.
Channels on Twitter at OABeer_official. And you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/overabeer. Or on Instagram, over_a_beer. And of course, YouTube, youtube.com/overabeer. Where every Tuesday, we also do beer reviews. This past yesterday, our beer review for the Megamix Pale Ale from MIA Brewing is up, so you can check that out there. And then every Friday at SoundCloud and iTunes, you can check out the Over a Beer podcast, which is a little more offhand and conversational. Dana's sometimes on it.
Probably have some other guests coming up.
Working on some things. But again, soundcloud.com/overabeer, and on iTunes, if you just search for Over a Beer in the podcast, you will find it. It's the same logo as every other outlet that we have. But that'll wrap things up for today. So until next time, drink up.
Butter me up.